Student Pilot License. The Student Pilot License, often called SPL, is the very first step in becoming a pilot. It's essentially your entry pass into the world of aviation training. With this license, you're allowed to fly an aircraft under the supervision of a certified flight instructor. One of the biggest milestones at this stage is the first solo flight, when the instructor steps out of the aircraft and the student flies alone for the first time. For many pilots, this is one of the most memorable moments of their entire career. To obtain a student pilot license, you usually need to be at least 16 years old for airplanes in many countries, pass a basic aviation medical exam, and start flight training at an approved flight school. During this stage, students learn the fundamentals of aviation, such as aircraft controls, takeoffs, landings, navigation basics, radio communication, and emergency procedures. Training aircraft are typically small and forgiving planes, like the Cessna 172 or Piper PA-28, because they are stable and easy for beginners to control. Student pilots are restricted from flying at night or carrying passengers. They also must follow strict weather limitations to ensure safety while learning. Sport Pilot License. The Sport Pilot License was created to make flying more accessible and affordable. This license allows pilots to fly lightweight aircraft called light sport aircraft, often abbreviated as LSA. These aircraft are smaller, lighter, and slower than traditional training planes. Examples include aircraft like the Icon A5, Flight Design CTLS, and Tecnam P2008. One of the biggest advantages of a sport pilot license is that it requires fewer training hours compared to other licenses. In the United States, the minimum required flight time is typically around 20 hours, although many students take more to become proficient. Another unique feature is that sport pilots often don't need a traditional aviation medical certificate if they have a valid driver's license and meet certain medical conditions. However, the privileges are limited. Sport pilots can only fly during daytime, usually below 10,000 feet, and they cannot carry more than one passenger. They also cannot fly larger complex aircraft. This license is perfect for recreational flyers who simply want to enjoy flying without pursuing a professional aviation career.
Private Pilot License. The Private Pilot License, or PPL, is the most popular pilot license in the world and the first major milestone for many aviation enthusiasts. With a private pilot license, you can fly aircraft independently and carry passengers, although you cannot be paid for your flying services. To earn a PPL, students usually need around 40 to 60 hours of flight training, depending on the aviation authority and individual progress. The training covers advanced flight maneuvers, navigation using maps and GPS systems, cross-country flights between airports, weather interpretation, and more complex emergency procedures. Students must also pass a written theory exam and a practical check ride with an aviation examiner. Many training programs require a long cross-country solo flight, sometimes over 150 nautical miles, where the student navigates between multiple airports. Aircraft used for PPL training are usually the same reliable trainers like the Cessna 172, Diamond DA-40, or Piper Archer. Private pilots often use their license for personal travel, flying to nearby cities, islands, or remote locations much faster than driving. Instrument rating. The instrument rating, commonly called IR, is not technically a separate license, but an additional qualification that dramatically expands a pilot's abilities. Normally, pilots must fly using visual references outside the aircraft, meaning they must see the horizon and the ground clearly. But with an instrument rating, pilots are trained to fly using only the aircraft's instruments inside the cockpit. This allows them to safely operate in clouds, fog, rain, and low visibility conditions. Instrument training focuses heavily on cockpit instruments, such as the attitude indicator, altimeter, vertical speed indicator, and navigation systems. Pilots learn instrument approaches, holding patterns, and how to follow precise flight paths guided by air traffic control and navigation beacons. Aircraft used for instrument training often include advanced avionics like the Garmin G1000 glass cockpit system. Many commercial airline flights operate under instrument flight rules almost all the time. Instrument training is considered one of the most mentally demanding stages of pilot education because pilots must trust their instruments completely rather than their senses.
Commercial Pilot License. The Commercial Pilot License, or CPL, is the certification that allows pilots to be paid for flying. At this stage, flying becomes a profession rather than just a hobby. To obtain a CPL, pilots must accumulate significantly more flight hours, often around 200 to 250 hours, depending on the training program and country. The training becomes much more advanced and includes precision flying, complex aircraft operations, advanced navigation, and higher performance maneuvers. Pilots often train in aircraft with retractable landing gear and constant speed propellers, such as the Piper Arrow or Beechcraft Bonanza. Commercial pilots can work in many aviation jobs, including charter flights, aerial photography, cargo delivery, agricultural spraying, and flight instruction. Some pilots also fly small commuter aircraft for regional operators. Many commercial pilots build additional flight hours by working as flight instructors before eventually moving into airline careers. Multi-engine rating. The multi-engine rating is another additional qualification that allows a pilot to fly aircraft with more than one engine. Multi-engine aircraft behave very differently from single-engine planes, especially in emergency situations like engine failure. During training, pilots learn how to manage asymmetric thrust, where one engine produces power and the other does not. They also learn how to identify the failed engine and maintain control while continuing the flight safely. Training aircraft for multi-engine ratings often include planes like the Piper Seminole or Beechcraft Baron. These aircraft are faster and more complex than basic trainers and require precise engine management. Multi-engine ratings are essential for pilots who want to fly larger aircraft, such as corporate jets, turboprops, and airliners.
Airline Transport Pilot License. The Airline Transport Pilot License, or ATPL, is the highest level of pilot certification and is required to become a captain of a commercial airliner. This license represents the peak of a professional pilot's training and experience. To qualify for an ATPL, pilots usually need at least 1,500 total flight hours in many countries, including experience flying at night, long cross-country flights, and operating under instrument flight rules. Pilots must also pass extremely challenging written exams covering aerodynamics, meteorology, advanced navigation, aviation law, aircraft systems, and airline operations. Once certified, ATPL holders can serve as captains on large aircraft such as the Boeing 737, Airbus A20, Boeing 787, or Airbus A350. Interestingly, many pilots first receive a frozen ATPL, meaning they have completed the exams but must accumulate additional flight experience before becoming full airline captains. Type rating. The type rating is the final step before flying a specific large aircraft. Unlike smaller planes, large commercial jets require pilots to receive dedicated training for that exact aircraft model. For example, a pilot who wants to fly the Boeing 737 must complete a 737 type rating course, while someone flying the Airbus A20 must complete A20 training. This training includes detailed classroom study of aircraft systems, simulator sessions that replicate real flight scenarios, and supervised flights with instructors. Pilots learn everything from normal operations to emergency procedures, like engine failures, rapid decompression, and complex system malfunctions. One lesser-known fact is that modern airline pilots spend many hours training in advanced full-motion simulators before ever flying passengers on a real aircraft.